How's it going, everybody? I'm Drifty from Driftwood Gaming. Welcome back to Learning RPG Maker MZ, the basics. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the Common Events tab, and we're going to specifically make a loot bag. So this is the loot bag tutorial. We're going to make an item that can randomly give the player any number of other items that we want the player to have. There's several ways to do something like this, and this is just one of the ways, or maybe we'll illustrate a couple of different ways. So to start off, we're going to use some sort of variable to help us determine the random factor. Let's start by opening up MZ, going into the database, clicking on the Common Events tab, clicking on a blank space in your Common Events, change your maximum if you have to make space, and then give it a name. I'm going to call it Loot Bag Tutorial. You won't need a trigger here because we're going to call this common event from an item. So the item will initialize it, and the item itself will trigger it. Otherwise, you would call the common event with a switch, and then the trigger would be auto run or parallel. Auto runs will lock the game until everything in the contents is resolved. A parallel will try to repeat what's in the contents over and over and over and over as many times as it can, once per frame if it can. But for this, we won't need any trigger or any switch for this trigger, and we're just going to start editing the contents. So let's create a variable by right-clicking and clicking on New. We're going to go to Control Variables, and we're going to create a new one, and we're going to call this one Random Loot Bag. And we're going to set this. You're going to use the operation of set, and we're going to say a random number between 1 and, I don't know, let's go with 10. We'll just make it simple and say 10 items for now. So then we're going to run a conditional branch, because what we have told the game to do is pick a random number. And now that it's picked a random number, we can have anything we want happen. Let's give each item an equal chance. This first system will be how to give each item the same probability to show up in the loot pool. And this is to give everything its own number instead of assigning a range. So right click on New or hit return. Then under flow control, we're going to click on conditional branch, and we're going to select a variable here. We're going to use that same variable that we have randomly rolled above it. So random loot bag. And we're going to say if it is equal to the top number or the bottom number. You can start at the top or the bottom for this. It won't matter. I think we'll start at the top. So we'll say, is it equal to 10? And we can use an else branch here, or we can choose not to use an else branch here. I'm going to say it would be a good idea to use an else branch here. That way you're guaranteeing only one outcome. Create an else branch here. We have a control variable that's going to roll a random number from 1 to 10, and then we're going to check to see if that number is 10. And that's all that's happening right now. So we need to decide what's going to happen if that number is 10. Change items. On the other hand, what we want to do is run the same check. Well, if it's not 10, we need to see, is it 9? Is it 8? Is it 7? And we can do this 10 times. So here's a shortcut. I'm going to left click on the conditional branch itself, and then I'm going to press Control C, and that's going to copy the entire thing. Now I'm going to left click inside the else handler of this conditional branch. I'm going to press Control V. That's going to copy the entire thing inside the else handler. We need to go in here and edit this to make it 9. If it's 10, give them this, and that's it. Otherwise, if the first condition of random loot bag equal 10 is not met, it's going to check the next else branch. It's going to say, is it 9? And if it is 9, then do what? We want it to give it the next best item, I suppose. And we're going to repeat this process. This is a simple trick. We're going to copy this and paste itself inside the else handler. We're going to right click. We're going to edit this, bring this down. We're going to go here. We're going to go here, press spacebar. This time we're going to scroll up with the middle mouse. Boom. We're going to left click. Boom. Copy this. Put it in here. Paste it like that. Go in here. Edit this. You get the point, right? I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this next part. When you come to your final possible outcome, which will be this variable rolling a 1, you don't actually need to make another conditional branch here. Instead, you just apply what would happen if they rolled a 1. So we're just going to say copy, paste this in here instead of another conditional branch. This is the end point. So if it rolled a 1, they get a silly, stinky potion. But if they rolled a 10, then they get an HP increase that permanently gives them a stat bonus. In order to test it out, you'll have to attach this common event to something. You're going to have to trigger the common event somehow. And the theme of this is a loot bag. So let's go to our items and make the loot bag. So we're going to make this a consumable item. Otherwise, you'll be able to use it infinitely. Give it an arbitrary price. Give it whatever type you you want. I say regular item. It makes the most sense. The scope of this will not matter, so we'll say it doesn't need a scope. The occasion, probably whenever you want. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to say just in the menu, though. While you're fighting, it doesn't make sense to open a loot bag, so I'll just go ahead and make it so it's menu only. You can give it an animation if you want as well, which I think is a good idea. That's good and all, but we still haven't attached the common event to this item. To do that, we're going to go over to the effects, double click in here, go to the others tab, click on common event, and select the common event that we've created. Now, when this item is ran, it will do what the effects say. It's going to call this common event, which will do all of this stuff. So now we need to award this item in the game. That's done through the events. So let's make an event. First of all, make sure you're on the event layer by making sure you click this button right here. It looks kind of like a rook or a chess piece on a table. To make this process as fast as possible, right click on a map and then scroll down to set starting position and then click on player. And then right next to the player, right click again, scroll down to quick event creation and click on treasure. Boom. Select the image by double clicking in the box here and select on the loot bag that we just created. Bang, bang. This is an easy way to test our item out. The loot bag was found. Okay. Let's go to our items. We see we have the loot bag, and if we use the loot bag, well, it actually did give us the elixir. It picked a random number. Apparently, it rolled a 9 and gave us the elixir. But that was kind of anticlimactic, wasn't it? Let's inform the player. Let's improve our common event by informing the player on what they got. We're going to click on here and say new. You can use several ways to inform the player that they got an item. We need to let the player know that they received an item, so there's several ways to do that. A simple method is show text. We're going to do that in this one. Simple background window at the bottom saying what item you found. Then we show a simple text underneath every item in increase, and we can change this to be the item that they get, an elixir. You just make it say what you want it to say when you want it to say. Now we just need to add an animation at the top or the bottom, somewhere in here for when the player gets an item. It plays an animation and it looks cool. So let's go to the bottom and put in an animation. There we go. Sparkle Heal. Now we just need to add an animation to the entire loot bag so that it plays something cool when you get an item. So when you use the item, it's going to play an animation from combat, but it won't do that if you use it on the map. So we can manually make it do an animation. On the item, we chose the Sparkle Heal animation, and it will play this if used in battle, but we're not going to use it in battle. In order to use this animation, we have to put it in the common event at the top. We're not going to wait for it to be completed. I'm going to uncheck wait for completion. That way it plays the animation, and then the text pops up and gives us the item, and the animation will be playing while the player is reading, and that will be a nice little polish, hopefully. So let's take a look at it in game. And here we go, the loot bag, we use it. Ah, you've obtained an HP increase. Very nice. And let's take another look at this. Get it? We got 8 this time. Boom, a super potion. A miracle drop. And, oh, I used the elixir. Let's use the loot bag. An antidote. There we go. Custom loot bag that will give us any number of random items. We can just change the number from, instead of 1 to 10, if we make an 11th item, 1 to 11. And if you want to add a weighted bag, you can do it like this. There's several ways to do it. This is in case you want to have a super rare drop that only drops like 1% of the time or 5%. In this example, I've got a drop that can happen 5% of the time, rolling a random number between 1 and 100, and then saying if that number is greater than or equal to 96, in this case, it could be 96, 7, 8, 9, or 100, that's 5, so 5% chance, then you'll get the best item right there. Then we made an else handler inside of that for all of the other things. We're rolling the rarest item first, and then going to the most common item at the bottom. If you wanted to make it 1% chance, then you would set this to 100. You would only get this item when this random roll landed on 100. Going over it, you roll the number, then you have conditional branches, and inside the else handlers, you have more conditional branches, and you keep going down, and the percentages on these are going to be relative to the numbers next to it. The reason why this next one has a 10% chance is because the one under it will check to see if it's 76, and this one's 86. So there's a range of 10 in there. So in the instance that the random number is 77 all the way to 85, then it will be in this one right here. And I go all the way down to the bottom here, you don't actually need a conditional branch in the else handler for the last thing. This is where you'll put your common items at the very bottom of the system, because you'll make it the most common number. So in the case of it rolling anything from 1 all the way up to 15, you're going to end up with just a potion. So it's just the same process we did for the loot bag, except we're doing greater than equal to instead of just equal to. And you can change the numbers so that each of the items will have their own weights. Hopefully this helps if you needed a more advanced loot bag. Now we have random loot. Hopefully you guys found this video informative, helpful in some way. If you did, give this video a thumbs up, like, favorite, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Come join us on Discord. Big shout out to Dejica for sponsoring this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.